So we're going to come to a feature in SQL which I don't use a great deal. It has its place, and they're called subqueries. Now, a subquery is basically a select statement that is embedded within a clause. Now, that probably sounds a little confusing, but we'll look at some practical examples. So I'm going to start off doing a straight query from our good old friend production.product. Now, let's say, for example, that I want to have listed against each product ID the total count of all products, which, if we scroll down to the bottom here, is 504 based on that the little row count on the side of the results grid, 504. So let's say, for argument's sake, for some reason, we're doing a crystal report, and against each one, we have to have the total. So how do we do that? Well, this is one way. It's using a subquery, so I'll do it and we'll discuss it. Okay, what have I done? I have got a bit of code here, self-contained in its own brackets. And what does it say? Select count star from production.product. Now, we saw from grouping that will get us the total count of that entire table. Now, if I were to just copy and paste that into its own window, and just execute that, and that returns one value, as count does. We know that from our grouping lesson. So if that returns only one value, it's perfectly legitimate to have it sort of in line against each record that is returned from the rest of this query. So just to demonstrate, I'm going to execute it. And there we go, 504, and so on and so forth. So it's a very quick and shorthand way of getting a grouped expression integrated into our select clause without having to, for example, join. We could have a join to a record set that would have that count within it down here. That's an alternative way of doing it, but this almost is equally effective. Now, I'm just going to get rid of my little subquery there. And what I will draw your attention to is there is a column here called, if I can just find it, product subcategory ID. Some of them have nulls, but without making you go to the data dictionary, I'll just I'll tell you the situation. That is linked. That is a foreign key linked to a table called product subcategory, and I'll just select product subcategory just to give you a look. And there you have it. There's sort of broad classifications of products like mountain bikes and road bikes. So if we, coming back to the production table, we could, for example, using that foreign key, and you know what, I will just refine this set down to only those that actually have a product subcategory. Okay, and you know what, I'll just, for argument's sake, I'll put product subcategory there in the front of my selection list. Now let's say, for argument's sake, that we wanted to get the product subcategory name listed against our product records up here. We want a column here for the name. Now, how could we do that? We could join to the product subcategory table from product using the foreign key field, using a join, inner join, or a left join. Alternatively, we could use a subquery. So you know what? I'll start typing the subquery and we'll discuss it. Now, this is going to have a bit of a problem here because remember I said that the rule in this situation, the rule with subqueries, is that this can only return one value. Now, that's not going to return one value. In fact, I can tell you right now, it's obvious that that's going to return the entire list of names. In fact, if we were to execute this query, we would get an error. What is the error? Subquery returned more than one value. This is not permitted when the subquery and a whole bunch of stuff that I won't go into. But basically, you can see the problem. That is more than one value, and you can't possibly represent more than one value in one cell in a record set. So how do we make it only return one value? Well, I'll do it and we'll discuss it. Well, what's happened? Well, what's happened is we've forced this subquery to return only one name by virtue of this little where condition. So there's no joins, we're just doing a where condition. Now what the where condition is where ps.sub product subcategory ID, and if we return to our product subcategory table here, that's the prime key there of the table, equals, and this is the kicker, equals pp product subcategory ID. So what it's done is, while it's a self-contained select statement, it's sort of gone outside itself, and it can refer to other objects within the rest of the query. So literally, and I'll run the query again, literally when SQL is running it, it comes here and it basically says, oh, okay, you want me to get the name from this table way over here where its value equals this guy here. It literally looks to this value, looks outside the subquery to the main query and goes, okay, PP product subcategory ID, is that amongst the rest of the query? Oh, look, there it is there, there's PP. I will get the product subcategory ID, foreign key field, value, integrated in here, and I come up with one value returned, and that is all perfectly legitimate. Now, you're probably wondering, well, that's all fine and well, but why wouldn't you just do it the traditional way by having a join from product to product subcategory down here? Why would you not do that? Well, there may be some situations where if this existing query was a lot more convoluted than it is now, if it had lots of tables joined to it, joins, lots of joins going all the way down here, it may be that introducing another join may affect the query. It may actually return more rows than you otherwise would because of the way the data is laid out. It has happened to me in the past, not very often. So having a sub-query is sort of an alternative to that. If introducing another joined table into a lot of joins messes with our joins in such a way, this is a way around that. Now, that is not very efficient because, in fact, it is reading the product subcategory table every time there. In fact, remember we had something like, what, 500 odd, how many rows do we have? 295, because we refined it down by the subcategory is not null. 200, so that means that is 295 times that we are reading the subcategory table. Reading it here, reading it here, reading it here, where once for every time there. In other words, we're reading the entire table there, the entire table there, the entire table there. Whereas if we had done a join, it would only be reading it once and then joining each of the product subcategory records to the product records based on the join condition we specify. So had we done a join, product subcategory would have been read once. Doing it this way, we're actually reading it 295 times. That will potentially slow things down. So subqueries, yes, they're a quick way, but they do come at a cost. Now, I'm going to show you an alternative way of using subqueries. Remember that the rule is a subquery can be used in a clause. So far, we've been using it in the select clause. It is possible to use it in the where clause. So I'll show you how. I'm going to put this back. I'm going to remove my subquery from the top here. Now, let's say, for example, we're only interested in those products that are of subcategory helmets or bikes. Now, again, we could have done it with a join. There is a way to do it with a subquery, and I'll just do it and we'll discuss it. Okay, let's see what that gets us. Now that's pretty much worked. I mean, we can see that these are helmets there and these are road bikes down here. So that's pretty much done it. Now, again, that's a slightly little convoluted way of doing it. it's not efficient because we're basically running this query we're basically running this 295 times. Once on that production row, once on that production row. We're reading that table 295 times, whereas if we did it in a join, it would only be read once, so it's not efficient. Note also that this query, this subquery, if I just select that text and execute it on its own, that returns more than one value. So this is different to using it when you integrate a subquery into the select clause, because when you've got it in a where clause, you can have more than one value returned. That is perfectly legitimate. So it's evaluating that set against that field in product using the in operator, which is perfectly legitimate. Now, why would you actually do that? Well, again, if you wanted to join, you could join from product subcategory to product. But again, it may be that in some situations your existing joins are quite lengthy, quite convoluted, the conditions are quite complex, and it could be that if you introduce another join, it could affect the number of rows returned in a way that you don't want or don't expect. So this sort of removes that possibility, and it can be an easier way to do things, albeit not a very efficient one. So let's just recap what we've learned about subqueries. You can have a subquery within a select statement, but it must only return one value. You can have a subquery elsewhere in other clauses in your query, and in that situation, multiples are permissible. It is possible for subqueries to join to the main query by referring to columns in that main query.